Welcome, Raymond and House Rock Wildlife Area Bison Hunters. This presentation, we're going to go over some differences that are taking place this year, starting this year, on the hunts on the wildlife area. And we'll hope that so you guys are prepared and at the changes that are going to be occurring this year. So we put this together. We've done this for bison hunters on the North Kaibab on a hunter clinic for at least 5 years now. But we thought with the changes that it'd be good to introduce you guys so you know what to prepare for and what to expect on these new hunts. Before we get going, I want to highlight this hide that is, this is a bull bison hide. This hide that we had an artist create for us, telling a story of bison and the plain Indian culture of the Midwest, told stories and history on bison hides. So we have a similar idea to tell a story of bison in North America, and we'll get back to this at the end of the slide presentation. I'll go over exactly what it is telling here. So there's the agenda we're going to go over. Part one is just going to be the background and what's new, the background of each wildlife area, and the legalities of the hunting, and then some bison age and sex identification, scouting, hunting, and then after harvest care. Here's the department staff. I am Carl Lutch, the Terrestrial Wildlife Program Manager at the Flagstaff. Been managing the bison for about the last 11 years now, and both House Rock, Raymond, and on the North Kaibab, and adjusting to what the bison do and how they react to the hunts. Also, you'll be hearing from Alan Zufelt, and then Sam Pogue is the House Rock Wildlife Area Manager, and then Kenny Hott is the Raymond Wildlife Area Manager. You can use these phone numbers to contact both those guys to coordinate with your hunts and let them know when you're going to be coming. Also, you can send questions right here to bisonhunt@azgfd, and this will go to all of us, and we'll answer any questions that any of you have. But easier to have the one email address than each individual one. All right, so what is the difference? What is a buffalo versus a bison? What is that difference? Well, true buffalo are found only in Africa and Asia. Many people call them our animals here in North America buffalo, but truly they are bison, and the Cape and water buffalo are the true buffalo of the world. So buffalo and bison are in the same family, though, Bovidae, but they are distinct and separate species. American bison consist of both the plains and wood bison. Wood bison are up in about halfway the provinces of Canada and Alaska is their range, so the northern part of North America, and then the plains bison are south of them to northern Mexico. Okay, they're only found in North America, and the name buffalo is believed to have come from the early American settlers' word for buff leather, where that derived from. Plains bison are native to Arizona, but they were not abundant at any time that at least archaeologists can uncover, and they were not present during the settlement period in the 1800s. All right, so here's the bison range. Here's you got the House Rock Wildlife Area and Raymond Wildlife Area, where they are in the state, in case you are unfamiliar with them. So Raymond Wildlife Area is about 20 miles east of Flagstaff on I-40. It's an exit 225. On I-40, that's the Buffalo Range Road, and it's about 10 miles south of there, and just follow the signs. House Rock Wildlife Area is a little more remote. It's about a 3-hour drive north of Flagstaff off Highway 89A. You just go as you would to the North Kaibab of Jacob Lake, and at milepost 559.8, you turn south on BLM Road 8910. It's about 20 miles south of Highway 89A, and just follow the signs, and you'll come across the wildlife area signs when you come onto the House Rock Wildlife Area, and then where the headquarters are is a few miles south of that, and there'll be signs pointing you to the headquarters. It's about 2 miles off of the 8910 road on the Forest Road 632 to headquarters. And here's a depiction of that. Here's a Highway 89A. That milepost 8910 road comes down about in here, about the middle of this BLM property, down the House Rock Wildlife Area, right in here. Headquarters is going to sit right about there where my pointer is. All right, so a little bit of a history and background. Raymond Wildlife Area, as I said, it's located 20 miles east of Flagstaff. It's less than 15,000 acres. It is fenced as it's surrounded by private cattle ranches. It is a mixture of mostly rolling mixed grassland with a little bit of pinyon juniper on the west side. The original bison were released from House Rock Wildlife Area in 1945. And up to 1972, the bison were hunted in corrals. Many of you probably have heard those stories in the past. And I got some pictures here that show that old hunt coming up. But what that led to was this. The hunting of those bison in the corrals was a book and a movie in the 1970s called Bless the Beast and the Children. And because of that and the protest that came about from the way the department harvested the bison back then, there were the first, probably the first, if not the first, public protest of hunting in the country. And because of that, the department changed the ways. Those protests happened out at Raymond Wildlife Area on the road. After that, the department at Raymond, from 72 to today, to 1920 anyway, 2020, the department guided the hunters on Raymond Wildlife Area. And in 2017, the department replaced those animals that were released from the House Rock Wildlife Area, and we replaced them with bison from Wind Cave National Park, and that was 46 bison that started that founder herd in 2017. Okay, so this picture here on the right was a picture of those hunts in the corrals. You see the bison being herded here by a guy on horseback in front of a hunter. Wasn't much of a sporting opportunity, and rightly so, the department has changed that. So this agreement with Wind Cave National Park was the first agreement between National Park Service and a state wildlife agency to jointly manage a bison herd of high genetic value and integrity, forming the new Raymond Bison Conservation Herd. So in 2021, the new hunt strategy is going to be implemented, which brings us to why we're doing this presentation. So let's go up to House Rock Wildlife Area. The background there, these animals came in 1906 by a gentleman named Charles Buffalo Jones. He brought them to the North Kaibab and with the intent of crossing them with Galloway cattle to form a hybrid. In December 1927, the first state bison hunt was in House Rock Valley. The department had bought, actually it was the state of Arizona, had purchased 97 animals from individual named Jimmy Owens. And Owens had picked about 15 to 20 of those animals that Buffalo Jones had brought in that he thought were pure breed buffalo bison, and he kept those, and Jones rounded up the rest of them and shipped them out of state. And in 1950, House Rock Wildlife Area was officially established for bison. Then up to 1972, bison were hunted on the open range or in the House Rock area headquarter corrals, much like they were at Raymond Wildlife Area. 1982, the department opened public hunts were implemented on House Rock Wildlife Area. Some of you probably remember those days of hunting down there on the wildlife area itself. The result of those hunts, though, was that about the mid-1990s, the bison first started showing up on Grand Canyon National Park. 2009 was the last year these original herd had returned to House Rock Wildlife Area, and now spend almost exclusively, probably about 95% of their time on Grand Canyon National Park. December 2017, another transplant had taken place. 15 new yearling bison were released on House Rock Wildlife Area from American Prairie Reserve in Montana. Then again, also in this year, 2021, this new hunt strategy is going to be implemented on both the wildlife areas. These 15 animals that were released on House Rock Wildlife Area for you hunters that will be there are of high quality animals, also of no known cattle genetics within them. So, new wildlife area hunt strategy. So, you heard me talk about that. So, what is it? All right, starting this year, hunters are allowed to hunt at the designated areas of each wildlife area on their own. Or if you prefer, the department will go along with you to help, just as we have in the past. But your preference, whichever way you wanted to go. There is a mandatory hunter meeting the first morning of each hunt at the wildlife area headquarters, similar to the past hunts, and we'll do that at 7 a.m. After that, you'll be on your own. Off-road vehicle retrieval is allowed on both wildlife areas, but no off-road travel prior to a harvest. And then just a special note on Raymond Wildlife Area, at least currently, probably will be for the next 5 years. No ATVs or UTVs are allowed on Raymond Wildlife Area, but you can drive a vehicle, a pickup, pretty much anywhere in the wildlife area after a harvest to retrieve that animal. So what if you wound an animal and it moves from the designated area of these on the wildlife area? What do you do next? Okay, well, just contact the department. There'll be an employee there at the headquarters or out in the field, and just find them, and they'll assist you. Hopefully that's not going to be an issue. These animals don't cross fences very well, but they will if they're driven and pursued hard, but typically on their own they don't cross these fences. And we'll go over those areas where it might be on a map here shortly. So what are the legal requirements since you'll be on your own? What must be removed from the field after a harvest of bison? So both species and sex need to be identifiable, and that is to your either your house or to your meat processor for identification. So, from a designated bull bison only hunt, only a bull. These hunts will be in spring hunts. Right now, the spring time period is what we're anticipating. So, proof of sex, either the head or genitalia attached to a patch of hide, or pictures of either with you. Just in case you don't want to bring the whole animal out of field is why we've shown you the minimum requirements. So, same for a designated cow bison only permit. Only a cow from the designated area on the wildlife area. Just as a note, just to go over that, the whole of the wildlife areas will not be open to you. These animals the main herd, cow-calf group, will be protected in an area outside of the designated area. These animals are not used to hunt, so they are naive, but and we'll go over that in a little bit here on just what the do's and don'ts to be successful. So again, proof of sex on a cow hunt, either the head, the udder, or genitalia attached to a patch of hide, or pictures of either with you, and the same for a yearling hunt. Only a yearling is legal from the designated area, and these will be yearling bulls. Cows will be allowed, the yearling cows will grow out and be harvested as cows at a later date. Proof of sex, again, the genitalia, a patch of hide, or pictures of either with you. And where this come about, there has been individuals in the past that didn't want the hide, didn't want the head, they just wanted the meat, and they wanted to leave it in the field. Well, in transport to either your house, your home, or to a meat processor, you have to have the evidence of legality of what that animal is. So this is the minimum requirements that you need. But most people will have the head with them. All right, so there is a checkout requirement still on all bison hunts. It is required. It is mandatory, so each hunter shall mandatory checkout whether you're successful or unsuccessful or do not even hunt. You go online, click the hunting tab in the upper left, and then click on the harvest reporting, which is the second row, first icon, and scroll down the bison. Or the department representative at the wildlife areas will probably be able to do that also. There is a mandatory physical checkout to collect biological information from the harvest animals. We just want to check which animals are harvested, so we know, keep the running total of which animals we have still. All right, on the North Kaibab, we do collect blood samples for brucellosis testing. We do not need that on the wildlife area hunts, so no need to collect any blood for us. So how many bison are on each wildlife area? So on Raymond, right now there's a 78, and you can see the breakdown of that. Those original 46, we've been harvesting animals there for the last couple of years. 78 with the 17 calves this year. This year, I think we're harvesting 13, 15 animals off of there. And on House Rock right now, that 15 animals has grown out to 36. We've harvested 2 bulls from this new herd. And you can see the breakout of there also. So both herds are still growing out. Was some concern, hadn't green up, or very little green up in the last 3 years. But now, with the summer monsoons, been great summer. Both wildlife areas is greened up. These animals should be in good shape and put on some fat prior to harvest this year. So next we're going to have Alan Zufelt come and talk. He's going to go over age and sex identification. You will have to know that on your own, and you'll still be required that requirement to correctly identify the sex and age of what your tag is for. So next, Alan.
My name's Alan Zufelt, the game specialist in Region 2. And moving forward to this presentation about the age and sex identification for your bison, this is probably the most important thing to get right in the field. You've spent the money, you've spent the time, you've finally got drawn, and you need to harvest a legal animal to be able to keep it. And so we're going to help you with that the best that we can with this. Bison, males and females, bulls and cows, yearlings look different from each other, but to an untrained eye, maybe not as different as all that, especially when they're in a group. So we're going to help you kind of see the different characteristics of the different ages and types so that you can have a successful event. So our slide's a little messed up here. Sorry about that. But some of the different things between the bulls and the cows and the yearlings. On this picture right here, before it gets covered up with words, you can see a younger bull, probably a 3-year-old bull, large based horns, tall goalpost, kind of almost vertical horns, versus a younger cow on the right side of the screen there. You can see much smaller horns and more of an arcing horn shape. Look at how much the facial hair is on this bull on the left, and that afro kind of thing that's going on, as opposed to the less furry hair of the cow. And then also just the mass of the head and how the cow has that long, narrow face versus the bull. I just wanted to point that out before we put the words on the screen while you can still see them here. If on a bull, if you're looking at it from a broadside angle, an adult bull, you should be able to see that penile sheath under the belly right there. For a yearling bull, it may or may not be visible, or may be very small. Obviously, on a female, you should not see a penile sheath. So, already mentioned a little bit about the horns there. You can clearly see that cow's horn will not get any bigger around. It will just continue that mass farther as she gets older. The bull horn is much more massive and just continues to build as he gets older and older. And the shape of those horns. Female cow horns are typically coming up in a sort of almost a round profile, where the horns of the bull are typically that much more goalpost straight up kind of a horn. Where that might change most would be in some of the older bulls, where that will actually start to look a little rounded as well, but it is very clearly different between the bulls and the cows. On a yearling bull, a horn will look like an ice cream cone stuck on the side of his head, where the yearling cow, it already has that little bit of arc and turn in it, and there'll be some pictures to show that a little better as we're coming through. Talked about the size of the head. You can clearly see even through all the words here the size of the head difference and just how narrow the face is of that cow versus the bull. The extra hair, and then just the smaller body. The reason, if you look at a cow versus a bull, the bull has a much larger hump than the cow, and that is all the muscle that's being used to hold the big massive head up. And so if you can see that big hump, you can be pretty sure that it's a bull. But look at all of the identifiers. Don't just look at one thing on that. Younger bulls haven't had the time to build that heavy muscle yet, so they may look more like a cow even though they're still a bull. So you have to pay attention to everything. Oh yeah, the neck. On a cow, you can clearly see a body, a neck, and a head. On an adult bull, you will not. It's just those shoulders straight up to the head. Whatever neck there is covered with so much hair that you won't be able to notice it separately from the animal. Okay, so calves are born earlier in the year before this fall hunt, and as you're looking at this picture here, you can see a young calf there to the left side of the picture, that sort of orangish color. Depending on what time of year that you're out there, that calf will be that color, or it'll be turning more into the standard bison color. And this picture is going to give you a pretty good representation of these different things that we were talking about on the last slide. So starting on the far left, that one that's kind of cut in half there, that's a cow. And you can see just the one horn there, how rounded that horn is compared to that younger bull that is behind her in that top left part of the picture there. You can see the heavy base and that goalpost style of horn. You can see the penile sheath hanging down there. So just as a comparison, though, that young bull will be the one that you would most likely confuse with the cow, because he isn't so old to have that massive hump or anything, but you can still see a lot of the wool, the heavy horns, and the penis there. So moving to the next, so this would be the one to the left of the middle of the picture here. You have a yearling cow in behind this adult cow. You can clearly see the difference in the size of the horns between those two. Now, if you have a cow tag, obviously you're going to be wanting to try to shoot an adult cow. This would not be a great shot to take because, one, the animal's in the wrong orientation, and two, it's got something behind it. So if you look over her back, there are two more young bulls on the top right of the screen there, and you can just see that from their horns and the hump that's developed up there. But this is going to be the kind of thing you're having to look through while you are on your hunt. So specifically to the cows, when they are sideways to you broadside, you will not see a penis. There will be no penile sheath. There's no junk. The horns, when they face you, are very thin at the base relative to the bulls. That curve we've talked about is very much more rounded. The narrow face and less woolly than the adult males are going to be. So here's what we're talking about right here. I just handed a thing. I can show people things. I didn't realize I can use the mouse to point. Thank you, Ben. So here we can see right here these curved horns and this small base. This is definitely an adult cow. This long face coming here. The afro is not overly large. It's very small relative to a bull. So this would be obviously an adult cow. You can look over here. This one on the left, this is also an adult cow. The long face, she's sticking her tongue out at you. She's got these lesser horns, and down here there's no penile sheath available or to be seen on her right here. This animal right here is also a cow. More from the broadside picture of that. You can really look in the horns, that lesser horn. She's a little hairy, but not nearly so hairy with the afro as the other ones. So, so very, very much less woolly than an adult would be. So, so these are cows. Now, you can see that there are other bison in the background here. I believe one of them is likely a bull, but we can't see enough of them to be able to know for sure. So, you are responsible for what you are shooting, so make sure that you shoot the right thing. We've already talked about these different indicators on the bull. The words are unfortunately on top of this, but you can see the penile sheath down here on this adult bull. The horns are much heavier, and you can see that the woolly hair is kind of overrunning even the base of the horn here. The goalpost horns, and then that very much larger broadhead. So this is a younger bull here, but you can already see those characteristics. A lot more of the wool, the goalpost style horns with the heavy base and the mass being brought out there. This is probably a 3-year-old bull here, so 2 to 3. But you see the face is somewhat triangular versus the long, narrow, sort of boxy, rectangular face of a cow. So side by side comparison. The rounded horns still has somewhat of the wool, but not the same as the bulls. When you get them side by side, you can really see the difference. Both the bulls and the cows have a goatee here, but the bulls are typically more pronounced, but that is not something I would base my shot on. I would look at the other identifiers. So, okay. This is a large adult bull here, and you can see he's got so big that horn has kind of turned in almost in that rounded, the similar shape to the cow. So this is possible, but clearly the massive hump, the incredible amount of wool, and just the mass of the size of the head is very obvious. You will not have any likelihood of mistaking a large, older adult bull for a cow, just from the massive size of them, even with the different shape of the horn of this particular bull. But yeah, make sure you get it right. So here's what a yearling bull looks like. The yearling bulls are sort of the outliers of the herd. They don't fit in, so sometimes they would be more independent and show up at a water hole by themselves even. They may have been ostracized or the least one that they care about. The penile sheath is there, but it's very little on this little guy. Hard to tell. Much better to look at the shape of these horns, how the ice cream cone on the head and the hair. This animal would be legal for harvest as a yearling. Yearling cows, I don't think we have a picture of them side by side, but you can see, I'll try to go back to the last one. Look at the horn shape of this one. You already have some curve in it. It's a smaller based horn versus this guy. It's a little straighter and bigger diameter at the base. So you can kind of see the difference. Either one of these would be legal for a yearling harvest. But even here, you can see the difference in the head shape between the long rectangular face versus the more of a pyramidal triangular shaped head. And the woolly head is more prominent on the yearling bull than it is on the yearling cow.
Hey, Alan, just to add to that these animals are legal for a cow only, as a cow or a bull also, not just a yearling cow.
Yes, I'm sorry, I might have misled people there, but yeah. So if you have a cow tag, you can shoot a yearling cow. If you have a yearling tag, you can shoot a yearling cow or a yearling bull. And if you have a bull tag, you can shoot a adult bull or a yearling bull. So I guess we did have one side by side. This bull here is still a yearling bull, but he is already a full year old. You can see how much that horn has grown from that last one. Again, versus this yearling cow, you can see the difference. They really start taking off by the spring of the year after they were born. And just you can see those differences in the wool and the head shape and the horn shape. It's once you get to looking for those differences, it's pretty obvious. But don't shoot. You are strictly liable for what you shoot. You have to know what you're shooting at. So if you have a question in your heart, don't pull the trigger until you figure it out. Here's a picture again of the adult bull. You can see how massive the horn is, how massive the hump is, the woolly hair. And these two that are in front of him on the left, right here and here, these are that same year's calves. This will probably be what the calves will look like when you're up there hunting this fall. It will be something of this, or even into the spring, because of the extra hair they have. To the back here, you've got a yearling bull for sure here, and maybe right there, but you can't tell by just one thing. Make sure you're taking a good look at things on the whole, not just on the parts, to make sure what your shot is. Here's just a piece of reference, the sketch showing these different age classes and sizes, especially with the bulls, showing what their horn shape basically typically would look like. And you can see the cow, the mature cow, how much narrower it's drawn. It's because it's that much narrower, and this is really a good representation of what that looks like. Aging bison, at least through where they're about 5 years old, it's really pretty easy to look at a bison. You just have to get them to smile. The yearlings, they will have, they only have lower incisors on the front of their jaw, so if you pull their lip down, you can look at their teeth. If they only have baby teeth, then it's a yearling. And then as they start getting older, just like your kids, they start losing those baby teeth and growing in adult teeth. And there's a huge difference in the size between those teeth. And so as this picture is demonstrating, when they have both of their middle incisors, that's a 2-year-old. When they have 2 of the 4 middle incisors on each side, so a total of 4 adult incisors, they're going to be 3 years old. And so on. I'm having trouble with that thing there. So once they get to be fully adult teeth, then that's a 5+ year old animal, and it really gets much harder to determine the age. So it's just going to be 5 or older at that point. Other things that they would look at would be how much wear on the back teeth and stuff. But beyond the tooth eruption, it's just a guess as to how old the animal is. Are we collecting teeth? No. So there are some other opportunities, some other places to go to look for some more of this. Wyoming has put together some things. Utah has put together some presentations that are online and kind of have a practice quiz going through things. I've said it a couple times. You need to make sure that you actually harvest the animal you intend to harvest. That is your once in a lifetime take, whether or not you can keep the animal. So make sure you shoot one you can keep. Then also come out and enjoy the Raymond Wildlife Area. We have a bison herd that you'll be able to look at and be able to see these differences in person and start to understand really what we're talking about there. If you have the chance to scout at up on the north rim of the Grand Canyon, then for sure take some time to check out the bison up there.
Hey, Alan, I'll
yes.
just add, Kenny Hott is our Raymond Wildlife Area Manager. If anybody wants to contact him to come out to look at the Raymond herd, Kenny can be reached at 928-699-5273. Again, that's 928-699-5273.
Kenny is a great resource there at Raymond, and Raymond, he can tell you where to go look and help facilitate you having a good visit out there and doing what you need to do. So here we have, just going to go through like a couple of extra slides here. This is a mature cow, but you can see perhaps this horn got broken a little bit, so it's not quite so obvious. But this is not a good shot to take, although it would be a perfect shooting opportunity if it was not for this little calf that's right behind her. You can just see the feet hanging down from out of her. You need to pay a lot of attention to that. The bullets will pass all the way through a bison sometimes, and you'd be responsible for that, for those second animals that are shot. So you've got time typically, especially on the kaibab hunts where the herd will come in and be drinking, moving around. There will be time for you to take your time to make a good shot. And that cow will be legal if that calf was not behind her. You could harvest her even with the young calf. The calves will be fine. We purposefully set our seasons to where the calves won't be impacted by if their mother gets shot.
So that's another identifier. If they have a calf, they're a cow. But there'll also be cows without calves. So that's another way to, if you're concerned about a calf surviving after harvest of a mother, there will be dry cows up there without calves too. So look for those.
Yeah. So this is up on the North Kaibab, and you can see what a herd of bison looks like, and how in the shadows with all mixed up on top of each other, and they were always going to be kind of moving around. It makes it, it can be a challenge to find that time, and that's where you need to take the time to make sure you have the good shot at the animal that you think you're shooting at, that's not stacked up with another one in the way. Identify legal animals, take your time, and wait for one to clear. And so with that, that is the end of the age and gender portion of this. So,
all right, thanks, Alan. We're going to go over hunting on the wildlife areas now. So just a little note how unique and rare bison hunting is in North America. There's only a few states that allow it. And Arizona was one of them, Utah, Alaska. and a little bit in Wyoming are really the only ones. A little bit around in Montana, I guess, around Yellowstone National Park. But it is unique and rare, so enjoy it. Make it an adventure. It is unique, and you'll enjoy the bison meat. Is some of the best game meat that I've ever had. So, how to prepare? What to prepare and what to expect? So, just like any hunt, you would go on, bring enough food and water for the whole hunt. We anticipate most hunters will be done the first day of the hunt, but you have 5 days in each season, and just be prepared for it, just as you would going on a deer or an elk hunt. Ensure you have adequate fuel and spare tires. November to February can be cold, so be prepared for snow, rain, sun, and fog. Cell service can be spotty, but it's better at Raymond Wildlife Area than it is on House Rock, but it is better than it is on the North Kaibab bison hunts. So bring the tools, spare chains, tow straps, high lift jack, star wrench, and there is camping available on both wildlife areas. Again, just prepare as you would for any other hunt. Don't think it's necessarily just going to be an easy one morning get it done type of deal. Just want everybody to be prepared on it. So here's the Raymond Wildlife Area map. Likely when you come in, here's our entrance road. Headquarters right down here. There is a north-south fence line running down this entrance road down to about here. Most likely the designated area is going to be over here in the eastern part of the wildlife area. That's 7,000 plus acres that will be available where the bison will be during the hunt. You see all these green areas are the roads that are open. And then, like I said, cross-country travel or anywhere, wherever the harvest occurs, you'll be able to drive cross-country to pick up that animal. So here's the House Rock Wildlife Area. This whole red outline is the whole of the wildlife area, some 54,000 plus acres, 1,000 acres. And right up here in this northeast corner is where the animals will be on these early stages of this new wildlife area hunts on House Rock Wildlife Area. All right, so scouting. If you want to come up, scouting is encouraged prior to your hunt, or come up a couple days early before your hunt, so you know the designated hunt area. You learn the roads, how to get around, age and sex bison, look at the animals that are there. House Rock Wildlife Area, a great opportunity to watch the sunset over Grand Canyon. And just a special note here, Raymond is closed annually, at least in the short term, from May 1 to July 29th each year. All right, you might get to see something spectacular over the Grand Canyon as this, or pictures with bison, elk, antelope, badgers on Raymond Wildlife Area with the peaks in the background makes a good background. All right, so the day of the hunt, as I said, we'll meet at the Wildlife Area headquarters for a short briefing at 7 a.m. And then afterwards, you're on your own unless you want us to come along with you. Like I said, there is the physical checkout of any harvested bison with the department representative. And we may go out in the field, too, after it and collect this information, too. It's kind of new for us, so we'll be learning the best way to implement these hunts this year, too. So what we expect is the hunters are expected to hunt as a team. For cow and yearling hunters, there's just 2 permits. The animals will be in one group, so hunting them together as a team hunting them separate is going to be harder to fill both tags. And then subsequently, the hunts behind you will be all the harder for them. So working together, you'll be more successful. So there are high points at Raymond Wildlife Area. And then at House Rock, you can use, there's roads throughout it, and I'll point those out here on the map. where you can go to find animals where the herd may be. At Raymond, it's just to the east side of the headquarters. There's a high hill there up by the water tower that overlooks all of the east side. Okay, there'll be up to 15 plus bison available in each hunt area. But once located, take your time. You don't need to rush it. Use the wind. They're not stupid animals. They're just naive to hunters, to being hunted, but they will wise up quickly. So hunt them just like you would pronghorn antelope. They're going to be out in the open country. Remain out of sight and downwind, or they will run from you. Okay, like I said, they're not stupid. You need to hunt them smartly. Determine if you'll stalk on foot, or if close to a road, you can drive out there cautiously. They are used to vehicles, but they're not used to people on foot, and they will run. They're not as spooky as the bison up on the North Kaibab. But you can approach, as long as they see you, probably within 200 yards, you're okay on foot. But anything closer than that, and a good chance they will run. So take your time, identify a legal animal. And then wait for, once you get in for a good shot or close enough, wait for a legal animal to clear. Don't take a shot if there's bison in the background of the animal you want to harvest. Wait till it clears. Wait till it clears in the middle or off to the sides. Okay, so factors affecting the hunt success. Hunters not working together. There's only 2 hunters, as I said, on the designated cow and yearling hunts. So working together is essential. We'll be working the same animals, so working together will ensure success for both hunters. So designated cows and yearlings should be together in one group. We covered that. There's no need to take long shots. You should be able to shoot 200 yards or less. And if you get in too close, probably within 100 yards, they are likely going to be running from you. They're still wild animals, and they're just naive, but they can wise up quickly. So shot placement is extremely important, just like we go over on the North Kaibab, shooting a bison. Caliber choice is less important to shot placement. We recommend you bring some sort of a rest, too, with you. Okay. Approaching animals in plain sight. Talked about this, but it's worth repeating. These bison are used to vehicles driving around, whether that's department personnel or hunters on the wildlife area, but they're not used to people walking at them. So, shot placement. Here's a bison skeleton. What we recommend is a heart shot. The heart sits low in the chest cavity of bison. So we'll go right behind that elbow. And the point of the elbow without hitting the shoulder. We want to go right behind that and get into the lungs or the heart. The position of this front leg is going to determine how available the access is to that heart. If it's forward, that's a great shot. Opens up the whole lungs and heart area. However, if it's back, down at a back angle, as much of it's covered. In fact, a lot of it's covered. I recommend waiting for a shot where it opens up as it is here, or a leg forward shot. If you're going to shoot, some people like to shoot and break down the front legs. You do that, you're going to ruin a lot of meat in the process, but it's your animal, and you can shoot it however you like. So again, here's it is on the hoof. So that elbow is going to be with all this hair and what they call shaps here. It's going to be hard to distinguish, but if you look about 6 to 8 inches up from the bottom of the chest, up right on that hairline, you're going to get in there. If you're back even a couple inches in here, you're going to hit the diaphragm, the guts, and they can go a long ways with that. If you hit them into this heart and lung area, they will not go very far. Okay, here it is on a cow. Much easier to see, not as much hair. You can see that point of that elbow right there, right behind that, right into the heart. Puts them down very quickly. Okay, so you've hit a bison. Now what? So whether it is up or if it has gone down, it's likely the rest of the herd will surround it and stick around that animal. So do not shoot again unless you are positive which one you hit. With all that hair, especially on the winter time, it absorbs any hit, any blood, and can be hard to see which one you hit. But if you're sure and it's still standing, I recommend put another one in there if there's a clear shot. Okay, so be patient. Let the other animals leave on their own. If the animal is still up, the one you hit is still up and wounded, it can run off or walk off with the herd, and you may not get a shot. So be patient. Make your first shot count and let the damage that occurs take effect. And that animal will most likely be on the ground, and the rest of the animals will walk away. Okay, if it is wounded, what we advise is let it walk off and follow it with optics. What is typical that we've seen on wounded bison? They will keep their rear end to you if you try to follow them from the back and try to come around on the side of them. They will match your angle and walk away from you. It's hard to get around on the side of them. So what do? Again, don't trail behind them. They can also run. But work around in front. Use the roads of the wildlife area to get around in front of them and come in that way. There will be way less spooky coming in the front, but they do not like people following from behind. And it's really difficult to get a shot. A second or follow-up shot, depending upon what that first shot did. They may follow with the group of animals, or they may veer off by themselves. But it's best to not try to follow them from behind, come in from the front, and you'll have a much better opportunity to put that animal down. Once an animal is down, that's where the two hunters on the cow and yearling hunts can work together and allow that second. I think there's even one hunt with 3 yearling hunters. Now the herd is anchored there for a little while, allows for the second and possibly third hunter an opportunity for the harvest as well. So, like I said, here's the green, almost the whole periphery of the wildlife area on the east side. There's a road up here off on the Hopi 3 Canyon ranches, falls up along the northern perimeter in here to get access in here too. There is a road, just so you know, you can see that if you harvest an animal up here, there's a road along the fence line that comes up here from the entrance. Up here, falls all the way along that entrance. So you can get in out there to pick an animal up. If it's wounded, walk in any of these directions, just realize there's roads to get around in front of them. Okay, same thing in the House Rock Wildlife Area hunts. Will be in this, what we call the northeast pasture. 4,000 acres. There's a close-up of that. Here's some open roads within that to get around. This area in here, you can drive out there to retrieve an animal, but there's no roads in between there. So, after harvest care. So you got an animal down, then what? But before we get there, I just want to show you some differences in photographing if you get an animal down. So these are some hunters up on the North Kaibab. Look how they posed this animal, got it up on its sternum, makes a nice photo. Here's another one, a little bit different angle. And then here's a yearling hunter up, female yearling up on the North Kaibab as well, up on the sternum, makes a nice photograph. Just contrast that with that first photograph. Blood in the background. It's a once in a lifetime harvest, So take some time to make a nice picture on House Rock Wildlife Area. You can get a background of the kaibab possibly in snow. On Raymond, good chance there'll be snow on the peaks. Take a picture with that in the background. Makes a nice memory of your hunt. All right, so plan ahead and know how you will handle the carcass. So determine how you're going to break it down. What are you going to do? You got it on the ground. Now what? Are you going to break it down in place? Are you going to haul it off site? You're going to bring a trailer. Bring with you knives, sharpeners, extra blades, rope, a come-along, or a winch to help get it into a vehicle or onto a trailer if you're going to take it out whole. Tarps to lay meat on and lay your equipment on. Game bags, ice chest, plan ahead just like you will an elk hunt or a deer hunt. Bring help with you. They're big animals once you get them on the ground. Even yearlings are about the size of a actually can be bigger than a cow elk, and in the neighborhood of 600 pounds. So, good idea to contact your meat processor ahead of time. Some of these hunts in November will be during the late elk hunt, and some meat processors turned hunters away last year because they just had so many animals. Might be the same this year, so just plan ahead with your meat processor. Let them know you're coming, and they'll save a spot for you. At least most of them will. All right, so once you get it on the ground, yeah, you'll see, especially there's a bull out on Raymond, just how big they are. How are you going to work that animal? How are you going to process it? So what we recommend is doing what they call the gutless method. Just doing it on ground. There's not trees. Difficult to get it up in the air. Anyway, with the small juniper trees that are there on the wildlife area, even if there was one by, so doing it on the ground or taking it out whole after it's gutted is what most hunters will do. But here's just demonstrating some guys on the North Kaibab doing the gutless method. You skin out one side of it, flip the hide over, take the meat quarters off the meat, flip it over and do the other same side. You notice these guys got their work cut out for them because there's another one in the background waiting for them. All right, so other things that might be nice is a pop-up shade for protection from rain and snow if there's going to be weather. This is on the North Kaibab. This is a summer hunt, so they had it for the shade protection. You won't have a heat issue on November, December, February hunts at either wildlife area, but there may be weather. Be good to work out of the weather if there's going to be rain or snow. All right, just a note, remember to remove all the edible portions if you're going to do that method. All right, another thing that people have done, and I've seen it in the last 10 years, is they bring a tripod. They make a tripod out of pipe and lift it up in the air with a winch or a hoist. This is an old photo, a department photo, and I think it was in the early 1960s. But you get the idea of that if you want to go that option. Haven't seen that in a while. All right, so let's get back to this bison hide. So what is this hide telling a story of? I just want to point out that the artist that did this for the department was Jan Taylor, very talented artist, and this was her concept. Once I told her what I wanted to do, she come up with this idea how to display it without words. So this bull right here, big bull, you'll notice on the shoulder, she's drew in other outlines of bison on that shoulder. That represents the millions of bison that were in North America prior to European settlement. So vibrant, healthy herds across much of North America, northern Mexico, up into Canada, Alaska. The skulls rising off the back of the bull represents the destruction starting around 1850s. They were shot indiscriminately for several different reasons, but that was the death, that was the destruction from millions, possibly over 50 million head originally in North America. They were down to less than 1,000, and some estimates around 750 total wood and plains bison left. They're almost all wiped out. So what these animals up here represent is two separate lineages. Most of them were Roundup. That's these animals, and they were crossed with cattle to make a hardier breed of livestock to withstand the extremes of weather back in the day. All right, and this represents most of the animals who had been crossed, even on most of the animal bison on National Park Service lands are crossed with cattle to some extent. But there was some that were never crossed. This is the lineage on top here, coming off of here. These tracks represents the trail of those animals and where they went. These were not crossed with cattle. Down here, you'll see most of these animals that were crossed with cattle. That's the majority of the animals alive today, as I said. But there were some that were not. That's these tracks. All right, so these two bulls down here represent what you think of this whole hide as North America, where Arizona would be. These are Arizona's two herds. So this more one to the west represents House Rock Wildlife Area. The one over here represents Raymond Wildlife Area. So you follow the tracks. So here's some tracks, the lineage coming around the House Rock Wildlife Area. That represents the Buffalo Jones, bringing them in 1905, 1906. You also have, we back up from that. That's the animals that are on House Rock Wildlife Area today, the ones that were not crossed. Okay, another one is coming to House or to Raymond Wildlife Area here. That's the Wind Cave National Park animals, a lineage that has not had detectable levels of cattle DNA on them. That represents the current herd with the Raymond Bison Conservation Herd. They are a satellite herd of Wind Cave National Park bison, and about every 10 to 15 years we'll exchange some animals to prevent inbreeding with them and with that lineage of bison. So these ones over here, we have coming out with the white tracks, crossed animals. That was the original animals coming in from Buffalo Jones. All right, those are the animals that have now found Grand Canyon National Park. The other lineage coming in is the animals from American Prairie Reserve in Montana that also have no detectable levels of cattle DNA in them. These animals from American Prairie Reserve are descendant of the last wild bison herds in the Montana Territory in the 1870s that were rounded up, and there actually is long history, but they were sold to parks, to the government of Canada, Elk Island, if you heard of them, and then they were transplanted back, animals back to Montana, American Prairie Reserve. They also part of a Glacier National Park, partnered with the Blackfeet Nation in Montana to jointly manage a herd of both Glacier National Park, where they summer, and then they winter on Blackfeet Reservation on the east side of Glacier National Park. So same animals at House Rock Wildlife Area. All right, so in conclusion, just want to leave this up so you guys can see this again. Any questions, you can contact any of us in these phone numbers. House Rock Wildlife Area hunters, contact Sam Pogue. Coordinate your hunt with him. Let him know when you're coming. If you're coming on opening day, as I would recommend everybody do, but sometimes there's other things that come in. It's a 5-day season. If you're going to come in later, let Sam know so he can prepare for that. Same thing with Kenny Hott on Raymond Wildlife Area. Coordinate with him if you're going to come in on opening day or not. And then if you have any questions, you can also email us. All of us will get this at this bison hunt at azgfd.gov. So any questions, let us know. And I hope that this presentation was helpful to you to understand the new changes, and wish you all well. Thank you.